The story begins with a backpacker named Claire, who has traveled from Australia to explore Berlin, Germany. This is her first trip abroad, and naturally she feels a bit nervous. Upon arriving, she checks into a hostel where she meets other travelers. Since Claire is traveling alone, she quickly bonds with the group and joins them for a rooftop party that lasts all night. As dawn breaks, everyone heads to bed, but Claire stays back to take some photos. Later, she ventures out to explore the streets of the city. After a bit of shopping, she goes to a library filled with countless books. After spending some quiet time there, she steps out, and that's when she accidentally bumps into a man. Some of his books fall to the ground, and Claire helps him pick them up. This man, who introduces himself as Andi, is incredibly polite to her. He explains that he is an English teacher. Since he speaks English fluently, they quickly hit it off and become friends. Andi then takes Claire to a park to show her around. As they walk, he asks her how she ended up visiting Berlin. Claire explains that she works for a real estate company and is here on a work trip. They spend the entire day together, enjoying each other's company and getting to know one another. By evening, Andi drives Claire back to her hostel. As they arrive, Claire mentions that she plans to leave for another city tomorrow. She adds, "If you'd like, we can spend some time at a bar before I go." It's in this moment that Andi gently touches Claire's hair, and the air between them grows charged. The attraction is undeniable, but Claire quickly steps out of the car and heads inside the hostel. That night, she notices a picture of Andi on her camera, a photo that was accidentally clicked. Before leaving, Claire feels a strong urge to meet Andi one last time, but she doesn't have his phone number or any address to contact him. The next day, Claire goes to the same library where she first met Andi. To her relief, she spots him sitting there reading a book. Relieved and excited, she joins him and the two spend more time together. During their conversation, Andi notices Claire's locket and asks her about it. Claire smiles and explains, "My mom gave this to me. She said it's meant to guide me home if I ever find myself in trouble." As evening falls, Andi invites Claire to his house, which is located in a quiet area of the city. Trusting him, Claire agrees to go with him. There, the two grow closer and shares an intimate moment together. The next morning, Claire wakes up to find that Andi has already left for his teaching job at school. She gets ready to leave the house but discovers that the door is locked. Seems Andi accidentally forgot to leave her the key, leaving Claire unable to step outside. She decides to wait for Andi to return. Later that day, Andi comes back home after finishing his classes. Claire expresses her concern, saying, "I thought you might have locked me in and I wouldn't be able to leave the house." Andi apologizes, explaining that he forgot to leave her the key. That evening, the two attend a dance party together, and Claire spends another night with Andi. The next morning, as Andi gets ready to leave, Claire asks him for the house key. Andi tells her that the key is on the dresser, and Claire checks and sees the key, which reassures her. Andi then heads off to his teaching job at school. While preparing breakfast, Claire's eyes land on a book lying nearby. Curious, she opens it, only to find a photograph of herself inside, one that Andi had secretly taken while she was asleep. To her shock, she notices the word "mine" written on her shoulder in the picture, and she also realizes that her locket is missing. Feeling uneasy, Claire rushes to the door and tries to unlock it with the key Andi had left on the dresser. But the key doesn't work. It becomes clear to her that Andi had deliberately left the wrong key, so that she couldn't leave the house. After this, Claire plugs in her phone to charge and turns it on, only to discover that her SIM card is missing. It finally dawns on her that she's fallen into Andi's trap, and everything happening is orchestrated by him. Determined to escape, she tries breaking the glass of the window, but she quickly realizes there's another layer of protective glass that's impossible to break. Even her screams wouldn't reach anyone outside due to the house's soundproofing. Later, when Andi returns home from school, Claire attempts to escape, but Andi quickly locks the door and notices the chaos in the house. Furniture overturned and the window glass shattered. Furious, Claire confronts him, asking, "Why have you locked me inside this house? Where is my SIM card? And what do you want from me?" Andi replies coldly, "You were planning to leave me and move to another city, but you said you would stay with me. That's why I've locked you in here, so you can't leave me." Hearing this, Clare realizes that Andi is a deranged man, mentally unstable, but now she is trapped in his web. Andi then forces Clare to stay in one place by restraining her on the bed, ensuring she can't attempt to escape again. Later, Andi visits his father after school and casually mentions, "I'm living with a girl named Clare. She's an Australian traveler." Hearing this, Andi's father grows curious and asks about Andi's previous girlfriend, the one Andi used to live with before Clare. Andi simply lies, saying, "She went back to her country, Canada." Later, Andi returns to Clare and informs her, "I messaged your mom and let her know that you're doing fine. But by now, Clea's health has deteriorated after being tied to the bed all day. When she goes to the bathroom, she finds some strands of hair belonging to someone else." That's when it dawns on Clare. Andi may have held another woman captive in the same horrifying way before her. The next day, when Andi tries to restrain Clare again, she convinces him, "I'm not going anywhere anyway, so you don't need to tie me up." Trusting her words, Andi decides to let her go. Once Andi leaves for school, Clare begins searching the house for keys. While looking, she finds a screwdriver under the sofa and discreetly keeps it with her. Later, when Andi returns home from school, he sees Clare solving a puzzle he brought the previous night. Clare behaves kindly toward him and says, "I need your help to solve this puzzle." Pleased with her behavior, Andi happily starts helping her. Seizing the opportunity, Clare uses the screwdriver to injure Andi's hand and tries to open the door to escape. However, just as she reaches the courtyard, she discovers another door blocking her way. Before she can open it, Andi catches up and slams the door shut. In the struggle, Clare's fingers get caught, causing severe pain, and she collapses unconscious. Through this, Andi carries Clare back inside the house, tending to both his and her injuries with bandages. The next day, Clare notices another room in the house that Andi always keeps locked. She tries to open the door but fails to unlock it. Meanwhile, at school, Andi starts becoming drawn to one of his students, who seems to be paying him extra attention as well. That evening, that schoolgirl follows Andi to his house. Surprised, Andi asks, "How did you get in?" She replies, "A man named Coleman let me in. He had a key to the other door." The girl then says, "I've seen you staring at me in school. What does that mean?" Before Andi can respond, the girl notices Clare standing nervously in partial clothing. Shocked, she asks Andi, "Who is this girl?" Andi quickly responds, "She's my girlfriend." Hearing this, the student feels uneasy and leaves the house without further questions. Clare asks Andi who the girl was, and he calmly replies, "She's my student. Her name is Franca." After the girl leaves, Andi cuts Clare's hair and takes disturbing photographs of her in uncomfortable poses. Time passes and Clare remains trapped in the house. As winter arrives, the outside world prepares for Christmas, but Clare is completely unaware of what's happening beyond those walls. She has no idea how many months she's been held captive. One day, Andi leaves for his father's house on Christmas Eve and doesn't return for several days. Days turn into weeks, but Andi doesn't return. Clare is left alone in the house without electricity. The food is almost entirely spoiled, and she begins to suspect that Andi might have abandoned her to die. Meanwhile, at Andi's father's house, some people arrive to collect his father's body, who had passed away from a heart attack. Overwhelmed by his loss, Andi sinks into deep depression. After a week, he finally returns to Clare and informs her of his father's death. Despite her circumstances, Clare feels a twinge of sympathy for Andi's loss. She tries to comfort him and becomes intimate with him again. By now, Clare comes to understand that no matter how hard she tries, escaping this house seems impossible. She begins to adjust to Andi's rules and accepts her life in captivity as her unfortunate fate. One day, Andi gifts Clare a dog which used to belong to his father. Clare loves the gift, as it provides some comfort while she's left alone in the house after Andi leaves. Few days later, Andi takes Clare out of the house for the first time and drives her to a remote forest, far away from home. His plan is to kill her with an axe, but just as he's about to carry it out, a group of children arrives unexpectedly. One of the children is injured, with a hurt foot. Taking advantage of the moment, Clare tries to plead for help from one of the children. But the child speaks only German and cannot understand Clare's desperate English words. Soon, the children's mother arrives and takes them away. Frustrated, Andi puts Clare in the trunk of his car and drives her back home. After returning home once again, he continues to take disturbing photographs of her. Clare tries to find happiness with the dog, but one day Andi takes the dog outside and kills it, feeling jealous of Clare's bond with it. When Clare asks about the dog, Andi simply says that the dog ran away. As time passes, the new year arrives and Andi goes to a work party at a friend's house. Meanwhile, Clare, still trapped in the house, watches the New Year celebrations through the window. In an attempt to escape, she somehow manages to open the door to Andi's secret room. Inside, she finds a photo album with disturbing images of a woman. Clare realizes Andi may have harmed this woman, and she begins to fear that he could do the same to her. Suddenly, Clare notices a flashlight outside the window. Filled with hope, she shouts for help. A stranger sees her and enters the house, attempting to open the door. Before he can succeed, Andi returns and violently attacks the man, silencing him forever. Clare, witnessing the horrifying scene, is left paralyzed with fear. Andi holds Clare responsible for the man's death, accusing her, "It's because of you that this man is dead." He wraps the body in plastic, takes it outside, and disposes of it by burning it in a trash bin. He also erases all the evidence from the house. Clare, still in shock from the incident, struggles to process everything. One day, Andi reads a newspaper article about Clare being missing. He realizes that the search for her has begun, and eventually the police will find her. He tells Clare to pack her things because they need to move to another place. While packing, Clare notices some notebooks on the table which Andi had brought home to check. An idea strikes her and she burns her hand on the gas flame. When Andi goes to the bathroom to get cream for her burn, Clare hides a photo of herself in one of the notebooks. The next day, as Andi leaves for school, he takes all his belongings and shuts off the water supply. While he's at school, Franca finds the disturbing photo of Clare in the notebook, remembering her as the girl she saw at Andi's house. Franca tries to slip away to the bathroom, but in her haste, she leaves the photo behind. The other students see it, and the truth about Andi is revealed to the entire class. Franca rushes to Andi's house on her cycle, and Andi follows her, but he gets stuck in traffic. By the time he arrives, Franca has already reached the house. Andi notices that the key box is broken and the window is open. He calls for Clare as he enters the house, only to find everything in disarray. He realizes that the door to the apartment above is open, but he hears Clare's voice coming from the apartment below. As Andi approaches her, Clare quickly locks the door, trapping Andi inside the house. Andi begs Clare repeatedly to open the door, but after being freed from his captivity, Clare becomes very emotional. She sits by the door, crying, though she has kept all her important documents with her. She goes upstairs and releases Franca, who had been hidden in the cupboard. With Franca's help, Clare is now free. Together, they exit the building, and later we see Clare in a taxi, driving through open streets for the first time in months, watching the people around her. This moment of freedom feels like a new life to Clare. She misses her mom deeply and puts on the necklace her mother had given her. Meanwhile, Andi is still locked in his house, where he has likely kept many other girls trapped just like Clare. But what happens to him next, only time will tell. And with that, the movie comes to an end. So friends, hope you liked it. And be sure to share your thoughts about the story in the comments section below. Thank you so much for watching up to this point. And if you really enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and share this video, subscribe to the channel, and press the bell icon. See you in the next video. Till then, stay safe, stay healthy. Goodbye for now.